On this episode of Star Trek Universe, we are talking about Star Trek Prodigy, the first and second episode, Lost and Found, right after these mystery sponsors.
Welcome to Star Trek Universe, the podcast where you get to listen in on the continuing Star Trek conversation that two lifelong friends have been having since they were 6 years old. My name's Matthew Carroll.
And I am David C. Robertson.
Dave, let's talk about Prodigy, my friend.
Oh my gosh.
Let's do this thing. First off, spoiler-free for like 30 seconds. Just what's your spoiler-free take?
My spoiler-free take is that it was action-packed, it was fun-filled, it had a lot of heart. There's a very deep kernel of what I feel like Star Trek is about, which is hope.
Mm-hmm.
In these two episodes.
I mean, it's finding new life and you know, recognizing it. Like that's the other thing that was like pretty heavy in this is like diverse people trying to understand each other, and the power of understanding each other is like one of the key moments in this whole thing is the power of understanding each other. And like, it's good, man. It's really good.
It is really good. It's great for kids. It's great for adults. If you were sitting back and going, I'm not going to watch this is for kids. Don't fool yourself. This is really fantastic Star Trek. And I would venture to say, this is the best Star Trek opener we've ever seen.
I think you're right. Now, I have great affection for some of the Star Trek openers. I love the first episode of Voyager. I love the first episode of DS9. I even love the first episode of TNG a lot. I know it's rough, but it's also like I have a great affection for it. But yeah,
I do too. I definitely do too.
Talking about a fully realized, like knowing what it is, knowing how to deal with these characters, like this is definitely the most well-formed Star Trek show I think we've ever seen, right off the bat. And it's wonderful. I love all the characters. I love the animation is really, really great. It's got that sort of Pixar style, maybe. I don't know. What would you call it?
I wouldn't call it Pixar, but
it's a little less cutesy than Pixar.
It is CGI. It is, it looks very much like the DreamWorks stuff from, Tales of Arcadia, which is what the Hagman brothers had just came from. So
right, you mentioned that. I was just trying to think of something bigger that maybe more people have seen that might connect it. But I agree, even older DreamWorks stuff, maybe Monsters Inc. and stuff like that.
Well, that's Pixar.
Oh, that's Pixar. I thought that was DreamWorks. I don't know any of these. I don't know. I'm not the animation guy. We should have had Jay Scotty on today, or Zuhair. It's if you don't like Star Trek, this is like the show you want to check out. Like I've been saying for a while that one of the things I haven't liked about the new era of Star Trek is the sort of like gap between there's sort of this adult Star Trek that's going on that's very much fan servicey and stuff. And then there's like, I was worried that this stuff would be so for kids that it wouldn't be interesting to someone like me and you, but it is so good. At least this first episode is really just like hit on all cylinders. Now, some shows, especially Star Treks of the past, have had a bad first episode and sort of like gotten better over time. I think that's been the curse of Star Trek. But I will say sometimes pilots of these kinds of shows are great, and then they kind of dip because they spend a year or two writing the pilot and making it really tight, and then like, now we got to write one a week or whatever, like, and then it becomes a little less fully realized. I'm hoping that's not the case with this. I'm hoping they really planned out the entire season and like had a good plan.
Based on everything that they've talked about, it seems like they have definitely planned out an arc for the characters.
Okay.
Good. Just hearing them speak at the that Star Trek thing they did a few months ago, and then reading interviews.
And then we'll get into it in the spoiler section, but like every character has an arc already that like they have something they're missing or something you don't understand about them or something we're going to learn. Like every character sort of has these like little nuggets of the future being pointed to already, and that excites me a lot. Because it does seem like they have a plan.
I'm invested.
I'm very invested.
They got me.
Let's get into spoilers then. You guys, if you haven't seen it, go see it. We're going to talk about all the spoilers now. What did you think, man? What hit you hardest in this episode?
I don't know about what hit me hardest. I there is something fundamentally tragic that always affects me when I see something like this, where there is, like, they literally, like, the slaves on this planet that we find Dalad, to begin with, freaking the diviner refers to them as the unwanted.
Yeah.
They're prisoners and orphans, you know, like.
Oh, that's the line that got me. I've brought you every criminal and orphan this side of the Delta. Talking about the Delta Quadrant, the Kazon says, and it's just like, criminals and orphans, man. The unwanted of society are just, you know, stacked up here. And I was kind of wondering about that unwanted line, because he says that about that cat creature.
It's Circassian.
Circassian. Okay, it is.
No, it's Circassian from, you know, like Imres, or now I can't remember her name. The cat doctor from Lower Decks.
Takana?
You're not gonna remember.
No, for sure not. But I thought if I could make the sound that's similar to it, you might get there. Dr. Tahani? Takana? Sabada? I don't know.
Whatever. We're not
I'm
going down
bad
this
with
road.
names. Very, very bad with names.
We know.
Especially Lower Decks feels like it has too many characters. Like, Star Trek generally has about 7 characters that are like the prime characters to pay attention to, but Lower Decks doubles that, because it's like the lower decks and then their upper management.
It's only like 4 lower deckers.
Yeah, that's true. But then there's, you know, it feels like a full complement of bridge crew. I mean, yeah, some of them don't get as much focus, but that's not what we're here to talk about. We've talked about Lower Decks a lot.
I tried to pull away.
I can't do it. I have to know who the doctor from Lower Decks' name.
It's Tahana.
I got close. I said Tahana.
You said Tahana with an H.
Yeah, that's close. Like I said, I didn't say I got it. I said I got close. The cat creatures, the Cation, they're called?
Yeah.
So they're all over the universe? Why does a Kazon have a...
That was something I was going to bring up to you, because it was, like, we saw not only a Cation, but a Lurian, one of Morn's people.
Tellarite as well.
And a Tellarite. So clearly there's been some sort of breaching into the Delta Quadrant since Voyager ended.
Do we know when this is supposed to be set exactly? Because that's another question I had.
Well, they have announced that we will be meeting Captain Chakotay.
Interesting. Okay, so this is after Voyager and still within the lifetime of a human being. Unless, well, I say that, but who the freak knows? Like, it's Star Trek. Captain Chakotay could have been like a spin-off captain who was frozen and sent to another universe or something.
Yeah, I mean, could be, but it's Robert Beltran, and I don't think they're gonna. I think it's gonna be
Prime Chakotay.
Yeah.
Okay, so that gives us an idea. I was really curious about that, like, because it seems post Voyager for sure. Unless there's time hijinks, which this diviner, right? Like, what character does that most remind you of in the history of Star Trek?
I don't know. Who?
First thing I thought of when I see this man standing there talking about his grand plans and not giving a lot of information and in some sort of tube of light, I was like, is this Future Guy?
Oh.
And it feels very much like something's going on with the diviner. I mean, he's called the diviner, which means he has future knowledge, right?
Maybe.
Yeah. That's what divination is. Like,
yeah, but he's also watching over a trash heap, so he might just be like sad little king of a sad little hill.
Sure, but he also did know about the ship. So, like, I think he's come here with knowledge of what this planet holds, which is the starship. I don't know what that means, though, because obviously his plan is not to escape. So what is the diviner's plan? What is he going to do with this ship?
On Memory Alpha, it says that he's in a tube of liquid.
Oh, really?
Or a fluid.
Oh, I couldn't tell that at all.
Yeah, it's not light, it's fluid, apparently. And that's why at the end, when it was like all shattered and all over the place, it was a big deal.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't catch that. I guess it looked like a tube of light to me. Nonetheless, it reminded me, him being called the diviner sounds like he might have some future knowledge.
He might.
he might be from the future, them being the last of their kind gives me real like Doctor Who vibes. Or like, you know, maybe there was some future war and they came back to try to stop it by stopping whatever the ship is supposed to do.
Yeah, maybe so, and that's right up my alley. I did all of that. I would be happy to watch all of that.
Yeah, same.
I am really invested in everybody in this show. I really want to know what the Diviner's deal is. Like, he told Jimmy Simpson, I'm going to keep calling him Jimmy Simpson. His name is Dreadnought. But he told Jimmy Simpson, he was like, she can't know, like, you know, the real purpose of our plans.
Yeah.
And I don't think he was just talking about she can't know that we're looking for the Protostar.
No. What is their plan with the Protostar is the mystery.
Yeah. Here. And like the Federation is obviously known in the Delta Quadrant, beyond Voyager, I would imagine, because one, he's looking for the Protostar, and two, he says that he doesn't want the Federation, like...
Well, he says the ideals of the Federation infecting her mind.
Yeah.
Which made me think that the Federation is not known. And that, like, because especially none of these guys that get in the ship, none of the crew of the Protostar seem to know what the Federation is. They find the translator, which I love that moment so much for multiple reasons. It's like I'm getting like warm and fuzzies thinking about how good that moment is, because from the very beginning of this episode, Dahl is, you know, he says, "Oh yeah, I forgot. No one understands me here," or something like that. And it's like this idea of keeping people separate by not letting them talk. And then when they find a translator, that's the thing that turns life around for these guys. And that's just such a cool moment and very Star Trek, you know? Just love it. But also there's that, but then there's also the fact that he realizes that Rok-Tahk is not a big scary guy. At least her voice is that of a little girl's. And it's like, what is Rok-Tahk, and like, what is Rok-Tahk's experience? You know, it seems very different than what he and we were sort of assuming based on, the voice and look. And again, I just love that. I love the very Star Trek nature of like, don't judge a book by its cover, like in its most like real sense. And I just love it. I just absolutely love it.
Yep. I dug all of it. I love Jacob Pog being like, "You understand Jacob Pog? Jacob Pog understands you? How?" And they're like, "Magic." And he's like, "Oh, it's a translator. A magic translator."
Well, that's actually, there's a couple lines that Rok-Tahk says. When Rok-Tahk first, like, speaks, he's like, "It must be a translator." And she's like, "Yeah, I knew that. I'm big, not dumb," which I love that line. And I thought we were going to get this, sort of smart, young girl who's like really, like, I don't know, has a powerful mind, and then she makes some statements over the next like 3 and 4 minutes that are like, oh, she is playing the dumb one though. Like, I forget what they are, but that's one of them where she's like, a magic translator. Like, that sounds like something like they would say in Dumb and Dumber or something. Like, it's really, really kind of silly on the nose, which I enjoyed, but I thought it was weird with her sentence a minute ago, like, "I'm big, not dumb," and then she goes forward to make like a bunch of dumb statements, which are funny, but it's weird for that line to be supersede the other lines. I kind of like that, but I also like the fact that it didn't feel like that. She was saying she doesn't believe it's a magic translator, but she's like trying to like trick Jankum Pog into doing something. Oh, gotcha.
And then like,
that's not how I took it.
It's clearly like he's smarter than she thought he was. So like she's being a hypocrite. And he's like clearly smarter than she thought. And then she's like, a magic translator. It's just like, I felt like it was just an awkward exchange.
Yeah, I see
sort of
that.
trying to like walk back what she was doing.
Yeah, I see that. Oh man, the Tellarite thing, is that canon for Tellarites, that they're you can use for reverse psychology on them?
pretty much.
Oh yeah? Okay. I guess I don't really know many Tellarites. Can't think of many episodes.
The Tower of Babel, is that what it's, not Tower of Babel. That's what I was thinking, actually, I was thinking about, the Tower of Babel for this show. I was wondering I was thinking it would be funny if they called him the diviner because he split up their languages. He made it so they couldn't understand each other to imprison
he divided them. I see.
Well, no, like he's God. Because God split up man and took away their languages for the Tower of Babel. But no, Journey to Babel is, I believe, the first time we see the Tellarites in TOS. And then, I believe Archer employed the use of reverse psychology quite a bit in Enterprise to smooth things over between the Tellarites and the Andorians.
Funny. It's very, very silly.
But I don't think it was to this extreme.
Right. Well, let's go through some of these. I mean, I don't know where to go because there's so much. I know we can't make this episode the longest episode, but like
it's
freaking
dense.
loved it. It's dense. It's got a lot. Like I loved that first escape scene where Dahl is trying to escape. It like really gives you a sense of his character, his sort of passion for freedom. And like, I watched that first bit with my niece, my 10-year-old niece, and I was like, I think you'll like this. And I threw it on and she was just like, as soon as he it didn't work and he's falling back to the planet, she's like, oh, I wanted him to escape. And I was like, me too. I wanted it so bad for him, you know? Mm-hmm. So good. So it was just well done, well established. You know what he wants from early on in the episode. And you kind of get the idea that he like takes advantage of whatever he can. And he's not the smartest because he does a few things that are like, he fails multiple times and that just sets up his character in this really cool place. He actually reminded me a little bit of Malcolm Reynolds. It's sometimes, just the way he's sort of like brash and, confident, but he fails often. And everyone around him sees through him and doesn't value him as much as he values himself.
Yeah.
I loved it. I love that.
Yeah. I really like his relationship with Gwen. I really like their chemistry. And, I love the little, like, human moments from her. Like, the empathy for the Cation. Like, she doesn't want things to be the way they are. She doesn't want to be there. You know, she wants him to escape. Even when she's, like, trying to impose her father's rule. There's a part of her that's like, I don't want this to happen. Yeah.
I totally agree. I really like her a lot. He says, you take care of my unwanted. It's like she has this compassion that the diviner doesn't have. And, I thought it was really, really fun.
By the way, the diviner, freaking John Noble, killing it, as he always does.
Absolutely.
As he always does.
Absolutely.
And Jimmy Simpson, too. He was so creepy as Dreadnought.
Yeah. And I think Dreadnought, because he's an AI, I think he can be sort of full-on evil. But the diviner has a reason for the things he's doing. I think he's going to be a bit of a mustache twirler, but he, like, believes that they have a purpose here. Like, he believes they've come back to save their people. And I think he, like... he's willing to do something very dark for that reason. It actually reminds me of, funny enough, what is it? There's an episode is it the final episode of Voyager where Janeway goes back in time to save her people, but she's doing a thing that her people would never agree to.
Yep.
And that kind of reminds me of this. Like, he's doing something to save their people, but he knows it's wrong, and he knows his compassionate daughter would never buy into it. That's kind of the vibe I'm getting, which is interesting. I would love to see like I would love to see that conversation. I don't think we ever will. I'd love to see that conversation between, the Janeway hologram and the diviner, you know?
Yeah.
If I'm reading that right.
Yeah. I mean, I'd be down for that.
Yeah.
As I've said many times before on the show, my favorite scene in any of the Matrix movies is the architect scene.
Yep. I
just like people sitting there hashing it out philosophically. Like, I dig that shit. Me
too. I often say that same thing. That scene is a great example, and also Doc Brown in Back to the Future 2 explaining the different time streams. It's just like, yeah, I love that shit. Give me a whiteboard any day.
I love it, but also hate that scene because it breaks the universe from the first movie.
Yeah. Well, it doesn't really break the universe. It just retells what he's doing in the first movie, because now he no longer fixed his universe. He just arrived in a different one that was better.
Yeah.
Which is weird, because it's kind of the Rick and Morty idea, which is what's so funny, that they do that a lot, where like you can jump to a new universe that's very similar to yours, and just like, but then what happens to the other universe where Marty just disappears, I guess? It's
theoretically, another Marty from a different universe where his universe was worse could arrive, or better. He could have like messed up the past, or no Marty at all. Like, it really you just don't know. Yeah.
It's just, but that's the thing. If you choosing to only care about the characters you have on screen, is kind of a thing that Back to the Future does. It's like, just kind of ignores the fact that you're destroying and remaking universes. The god level power that Marty and Doc have, and they're just like, yeah, but I want to save my girlfriend. But you just destroyed a universe, man, or you created one, or whatever. Oh man, it's fun.
I'll send you a picture of myself. I'm gonna leave you a note that'll destroy an entire universe, Doc. Yes, but you'll know where I am.
And I am the only thing that matters. Those are darker than I've really realized until now.
Yeah, they are.
Did you get, of the Vonnegut, did you get vibes that they were a similar species to the characters from Beyond? Star Trek Beyond?
That's interesting. No, I didn't think about that at all, but
they look very similar.
They do.
I can't remember what that species is called, but I had to look it up. I was like, are they the Vonnegut? Because that's, for a second, I thought that was what was going on. But it's not.
Interesting. Okay. Well,
I'm sure it's not, but I don't know what they're called.
Oh, you didn't look it up? I thought you had.
Jayla. I looked up the Vonnegut on Memory Alpha, and they were nowhere else in Star Trek.
So one of the writers said that the character of Murph is a reference, is a deep cut reference that no one has guessed yet.
Huh.
So
wait, which one's Murph?
He's the little slug thing.
Oh. Interesting.
And a bunch of people think that he's a Danubian slime devil.
Okay.
But there was a picture of a Danubian slime devil in sickbay, so they didn't look like Murph. My favorite theory is that it's a baby Nassim, a baby caretaker, basically. Because it does look a lot like what the caretaker did when it was dying and like reverting back to like a gel form and then to a crystal form.
Interesting. That would be really interesting.
Wouldn't it?
For those of us are not as in the know about the caretakers, explain the caretakers.
The caretaker is, the caretaker was part of a species. I believe his mate was the last of its kind, as far as we know, but they're the ones, or the caretaker was the one that brought, Voyager. He was bringing ships to his location because he knew he was dying and he wanted, someone new to come and, power him and give power to the Ocampa to keep taking care of them. Star Trek Voyager.
Oh, that's the caretaker. I'm sorry. I was thinking of the...
you were asking me to explain it to you.
No, I was. Apparently. Because when you said caretaker, I was thinking of the preservers. That's what went through my head.
I've seen a lot of people, though, say, like, oh my god, is Murph a shaven tribble? And I'm like, no.
A shaven tribble? How would that even work? He's huge.
I know.
Yeah. That doesn't seem to work at all.
H. John Benjamin said that when you shave a tribble, there's nothing but blood red meat.
Ugh. That is canon. Okay, let's go down these characters real quick. Who we got? We got Dahl, of course. Who we haven't spoken about it yet, but he is an unknown species, which is interesting.
Which is, it's a great way to put you right, like, right away you give us the notion he doesn't know who he is.
Right.
He is an unknown quantity, and I dig that.
Yeah. By the way, just so you know, I looked it up, and apparently Jayla's species from Star Trek Beyond is also unknown. So they look very similar to me, but I could be completely not a thing. But that's weird that they didn't name that species in that movie.
Yeah, I'm down though. That's cool.
That's interesting. Okay, so who knows? Maybe they are the last of their kind, the Vanakat. Yeah, I agree completely. It puts you right in, he doesn't know who he is. It gives him this like inner yearning that you already got this like thing that you want for him. He wants freedom and he wants to know who he is. Like that's who Dahl is. And he like is confident and he just so many, I think of that like Red Letter Media, a review of Star Wars where he's like talking about, you know, good characterization and when you can describe them without describing what they look like. And I already feel so many things about Dahl and know so many things about Dahl and who he is. And I just think it's great. It's awesome.
Yeah. And if you know, there's definitely a way to push this story wise where, you know, he yearns for freedom, but he doesn't know who he is. And he wants to know who he is. There is something to be said for knowing who you are and being trapped in that. You know, and then, you know, sort of be careful what you wish for thing.
Yeah.
Once he finds out who he is, he will be trapped in that. And he needs to, you know, he will have to break away from that too.
Yeah, confidence can come from versatility. It may be the wrong word I'm looking for, but like confidence can come from that sort of ability to believe whatever you think about yourself. And once you have a certain thing that you know about your past or your lineage or your whatever, you might go, oh, well, maybe that's not who I am. Maybe I'm not the guy, the freewheeling spirit that I think I am.
That's why I have no interest in my past.
I kind of feel that. I do.
My sister is totally into like the genealogy stuff, and I'm just like, oh, really? I don't need to know.
Interesting.
I don't want to know.
Yeah, I don't care at all. Not even a little.
Yeah.
You know, who knows? Maybe one day I'll be curious. But I know nothing about my family lineage really, and don't really care.
You know, it has come into it's come in handy. My anti-vaxxer dad has been claiming that he has never been immunized with anything. And my sister was like, yeah, you were born in blah, 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 right? And he was like, yeah. And she's like, yeah, you got your shots. I have the records.
Oh, man.
So that was nice.
Yeah. What a world.
Yeah.
What a world we're in right now. Okay. Well, let's see. We've talked a little bit about her. The Diviner's daughter. What's her name?
Gwen.
That's right. It's the first episode. I'm still getting them. So yeah, Gwen, is also like compassionate, but also complicit. You know what I mean? Like she doesn't have power but I'm curious how many episodes it'll take before she like is actually against her father, you know? Like I have a feeling she'll at first have some things where she like just needs to save the ship and needs to help because it's good for everybody on the ship, but eventually she's going to have to stand up to her father, right?
Yeah, and I assume she'll find he'll in an act of desperation, she'll see him do something truly horrendous, you know, and she'll go, oh, we're not doing that anymore.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, if nothing else, she's going to, as she's been doing, see the value in all the life of the unwanted. And that continues to be the case. She's among the unwanted now. And she's going to continue to see their value when he's hunting them down to kill them. And she's saying, no, don't. These are people that I care about. You know, that in itself is probably enough. Yeah.
I'm very curious if they're going to go back for the Cation. Because they left that little Cation girl.
Yeah, I thought about that too. I thought about really all the unwanted, and like, she's been the compassionate caretaker of these people, then like what happens to them now? When all they have is left is John Noble and Jimmy Simpson. That's a rough life.
Mm-hmm. Man.
I wonder if that'll be something she's concerned with when she's talking about taking her back. Like, I wonder if she'll be, you have to take me back. My job is to care for these people. Like, my dad's going to treat them bad if I'm not there,
Yeah.
That which is like a really noble reason to want to go back, and, also something that they can't do because it would, put them all in danger.
Well, I could easily hear the kid, like Dal, going, well, then we gotta go rescue him.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure.
Especially like if there's another Starfleet vessel that comes into play, if we're getting Captain Chakotay, okay.
Yeah. I love the idea that the Federation is unknown to Gwen, and that he doesn't want the ideals of the Federation infecting her mind. Like, and now she's on a ship that's all it's going to do. She's already compassionate and hopeful, and now, that's the ship she's on. I'm very excited to see, and I'm excited to see Catherine Janeway as like a purveyor of what the Federation is about, and it should be good.
Yeah.
Oh man, holographic training advisor, I think she said she was.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. Very interesting. Is she like, I don't know, like the new EMH like version that helps you train you for bridge life? I don't know. It's interesting.
I mean, yeah, maybe. I mean, in case that there are no commanding officers on board.
Yeah. I wonder if she will be a character and not just an advisor. You know what I mean? Just like the EMH was.
Oh, I imagine so.
Yeah, that's interesting. Because I could totally see it just being like she is a piece of software and she is helping, but not really having her own journey of self-discovery as a separate character from Janeway. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I would hope so. Like, just like, the Doctor had a completely separate, life self-journey than his maker Zimmerman.
Yeah, exactly.
I think it would be an amazing opportunity for Kate Mulgrew as well to play the character differently and find new shades and new tones within the makeup of Janeway.
How cool would it be if they do make it back to like Federation space or whatever, and like this Janeway hologram has developed similar to the EMH, like let's say 6 years into this show, and she gets to meet the like actual Janeway Prime, and it's like just they're totally different people, and they're on different sides of an issue or something. That would be so much fun.
Yeah,
I'm excited about this show. So freaking excited. Okay, we got Fugitive Zero. Interesting character.
I really enjoyed Fugitive Zero.
Me too. Medusan, I'm assuming that's from other Trek, right?
The original series, yeah.
Okay, cool. Also, interesting, we've talked about on Discovery, there's a non-binary character now. And in this, they've also introduced a non-binary character, but I don't know, I really like that they're introducing a non-binary character who is sassy and can have those lines about, I'm not a he or a she, but not necessarily be offended by it. But like, it could actually teach kids like, hey, this is a thing that exists, like they call her they. See, I can't even do it. I'm so bad at it. That's the thing though. But like introducing kids to this on a show is really interesting because it like can allow those sorts of conversations to happen in a non-combative way.
Yeah. And that was the case in TOS. They weren't binary. They were just energy beings that would drive you mad.
Right. But having a non-binary character that I'm assuming they will continue to call them they, or something like that.
Yeah, it totally normalizes it. Yeah,
it normalizes it for kids to allow them to like have those, at least be able to use the language in a way that I cannot.
Yeah.
That I still can't to this day. I just called them a her, because the voice is female and I can't think outside the binary. Like that's just how I was raised. It's really hard for me. And so it's interesting to have on a kid's show, just like non-combatively, this is a Medusan. non-binary.
Now there was a great exchange with the Medusan with Zero, and it felt like the original series Trek. It did. There is when Dow comes back and they're like, "You survived?" He's like, "Of course I survived. Why do you all look so surprised? Were you going to leave without me?" And they're like, "No."
Yeah.
And then Zero says, "Your chance of return was low. Our desire to leave remained high."
It's so great. It's so Spock to me.
And then I could hear Kirk, as Dal said, but I could hear Kirk in it. I could be offended later.
Yeah, totally. Totally. Oh man, you're right. Yeah, talking about Star Trek moments, like the moments that felt most Star Trek to me. And it almost felt like this was the moment the Federation came into the story in a way. I mean, clearly it had earlier with the translator, but when they're trying to escape, everything had been, none of this felt like Star Trek to me. It felt like a totally separate thing. And I love it. I love what it is. It has the ideals of Star Trek, but it's communicating in a completely different visual and like sort of writing language. Like it's just a totally different thing. It feels like to me, mostly, except for in its ideals. But then when they were getting out of the tube, they're flying out of the structure and, they're working on the phasers, and the phasers come online just in time. And he's like, "We got phasers, baby." It did a shot of the primary hull that we have seen on 1,000 Star Trek things, where it's doing like a full spread of phaser beams from the primary hull. And like, it was like it was as if a Starship Fleet vessel had joined the story at that moment to do the thing and save the people. And it just made me feel so excited and warm-hearted. Like, I remember seeing that in the trailer for this, him saying, "We got phasers, baby." And it resonated with me then too, but like, in context, it was even greater. It was so cool. So cool.
I agree. And I don't want to keep seeing the same kind of Star Trek. I love TNG, DS9, and Voyager.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Voyager less so, but we're working on that. I'm doing a rewatch. But I want something different. This franchise cannot stay the same or it will die. So I just had this conversation with my mom last night.
Yeah.
who cannot accept Batman who isn't Michael Keaton. And I'm like, he was Michael Keaton twice.
Yep.
I mean, he was Batman twice. He was Michael Keaton lots of times.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree. I think this show is doing what a lot of Star Trek has been trying to do, which is like retell Star Trek in a new and modern way and like still hold on to the ideals. And that's something that it struggled to do. It's like to compete with modern adult drama, you have to be like, oh, it has to be a anti-hero. You know what I mean? Like the hopefulness of Star Trek feels dated somehow. And so when they make these dramas like Discovery or even Picard to some degree, it like feels like they have to make people make sort of like questionable decisions and have like a lot of anti-hero stuff going on. And, this is just by virtue of completely changing the medium. It's kind of escaping that sort of trap of feeling either dated or too hopeful or Pollyanna or whatever.
There's a thing with new Star Trek where if you have a bunch of Federation characters, you're going to be either, oh, they're too flawed, or, oh god, just doesn't work for today.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
And I'm excited to see how they tackle that in Strange New Worlds, because I think that's going to be the show where they ignore that sort of impulse to be modern. And it seems, not that they won't be modern, but that impulse to be anti-hero-y, because that's not what Star Trek necessarily is. Not that it can't be. I don't
know that they're going for anti-hero anyway. I think it's just you have to have, especially if you're doing serialized television, like if you're doing like an episode by episode, like, thing like TNG, you can have like the characters full of hope and they're always like the guiding light. But if you are going and you're doing like, here is an arc, we're going to explore this, you want to have the character broken, and you want to have the character find their way out of that.
Yeah, they have to change for it to be interesting. And you know that I've been saying that for years and years, that matters to me, that they change and grow. Like, that's why early Star Trek doesn't resonate with me as much. Like, I can't sit down and do a rewatch as easily because I'm just like, every episode feels like we're resetting, because we are. But yeah, I think that's been an issue for Star Trek, to just find that balance without delving into the darkness of modern television, I think. And I'm not saying like it's always the goal, but it does seem to reside there, where, I mean, even like, it's this almost a silly example, but Michael Burnham on Discovery, oh, she's a prisoners that caused a war. And I don't think that ever resonates, but like, that's the character they set up as the person who made the decision to start a war, which is like not a Federation thing. And so like, I don't think it resonates that way because you're so with her all along on those decisions. So, but like, I think they do kind of go for that. And I mean, like, all the crew of Picard's ship, like, you got this sort of guy who seems like he doesn't really care as the captain. He seems like he's like done with the Federation, you know. You got the girl who you really like, but ends up being a murderer, you know, like, yeah. So like, these are in some ways anti-heroes.
Well, I mean, you know, I remember when DS9 came out, there was a lot of flack, and there was for years following that the primary character, the lead of the show, was a human being in the Federation, in Starfleet, who was holding a grudge against Captain Picard. I think the better question is, how is Captain Picard a murderer as Locutus and still a captain? Like, yes, he was taken over, but those are some horrendous crimes. Sisko's got a point. Like, so there's, you know, and also this guy killed his wife. Like, but Sisko had a journey as well.
Yeah.
And it was something DS9 did very well.
Right.
And, but yeah, there are people in the fandom who they don't like that fallen status. Like, Discovery is far from the first Star Trek to do this. Kirk was broken. Kirk was fallen several times.
Right. I think the idea, and I think this is where you kind of have to try to navigate in Star Trek, is that like, your characters can be flawed, at least for me. Like, I love a good flawed character, but there has to be an ideal they're striving for, even if they fail at times. I love Sisko's my favorite, but like, he's incredibly flawed, and he does horrible things in some places, but he does them because he thinks the ideals are worth protecting, even if you need to break the ideals sometimes. It's a tricky road to walk, but it's real, and that's what's interesting. And the ideals of the Federation are important. And then clearly this show, Prodigy, is going to try to maintain those ideals of the Federation by introducing them to people who've never had them before. And that is super cool. Like, the idea of this crew going around, I don't know if it's all going to be a chase story or if they're going to encounter other worlds or what, but like, the idea that they're going to need to make decisions that make them part of the Federation, that make them part of the like lineage of Starfleet. Like, I love that idea. I love it.
I love it. I love it. I love it. I love everything about this show so far. I love the references. I love that we saw the Kazon. I love the Window of Dreams, which was a star cluster that was brought up in Body and Soul and Voyager. They did some really cool like references in here that made me really feel like, even though it wasn't the show mostly was not very Star Trek, it made me feel like it was in the Star Trek universe. You know what I mean?
Yeah, man, I absolutely agree with that. I think it really does, and it feels like this feels like it's clearly residing in the Star Trek universe. I mean, there's a few things, as we talked about with like animation, sometimes certain things are silly, like Dahl falling in that loader with no seatbelt on in the first scene and like not dying. It was like, oh, okay, that's not great. But like that's probably not a real thing, but you could headcanon it for sure. But it's like,
yeah, no, they didn't show him hit the ground. Like, so he could have been rescued because, you know, we can't have our work, or, you know, we gotta.
Yeah. Maybe there was some sort of, you know, airbag system or something. Who knows? Or anti-grav or whatever. But it just, little things like that where there's another scene even before that when he just falls off of that sort of like, that elevator. They shoot that chain and it breaks and he falls a really long way and just falls on rocks. And it's like, he bounces up and keeps running. And it's like, okay, so I guess he's really young and just still made of cartilage.
Or he's alien and you know. Yeah,
right, exactly.
We don't know how strong he is.
Plenty of ways to headcanon it, for sure. And like even live action Star Trek will sometimes do things like that where, oh gosh, we fell off a mountain, but it's okay. I just kind of scratched my leg. You know. But it's still, like, I think other than that kind of stuff that's just like stylistic to the animation, I think this feels very much in the world of like, you know, Star Trek Prime or whatever. Very excited to see where it goes. And I love the new ship. The new ship is beautiful.
Yeah. I believe it or not, I like the Kelvin verse nacelles on it. I don't.
Oh yeah.
It doesn't bother me that it looks like it's from the Kelvin verse. It's apparently bothering a lot of people. I don't.
That's some personal growth right there, Dave.
Well, I mean, we don't. There's only so many designs in the universe, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, but yeah, I actually like the nacelles from the Kelvin verse.
Yeah.
They look like they're from like a 1950s cars or something.
Yeah, for sure. I like it too. You just don't like that it's different from the thing that it makes it not fit in the universe or whatever, particularly in those timelines.
There's a lot of wiggle room. I'll say that. There is a lot of wiggle room.
Yeah, for sure.
Design wise.
Yeah, absolutely. I have a few things I wrote down. If you got anything else you want to throw out? I don't know.
I don't know. Let's just see what you say.
All right. I liked that Zero can't fight. I really liked it because, like, I don't know, especially on an animated show, like or on all these shows, really, like every Federation officer can always fight. And it seems like they all have some skill or whatever. And I just like that, like, they're Medusan, they have all this ability, but like, he's like, they're like, we're fighting now or not, because they just can't fight. And I thought that was super fun.
Yeah, that was fun. I did appreciate the bit where they were like, yeah, I've made this suit without arms or whatever. Like, I built the suit. Dahl was like basically shitting on the suit. And they said, try to build one without any hands. I think I did a fine job. That was what it was. I found it.
That's good. That was good.
I did enjoy that quite a bit.
Yeah, it was really good. I liked that, the Tellarite was also like interested in taking the Medusan apart. Can't wait to take this apart. He's like, if you've seen one ship, you've seen them all. I'm interested in this guy.
Jason Mantzoukas is perfect for that character.
Oh, he's so good. He's so good for it. I forget what this is about. I have a lot of down. What have you been doing? Is making a series of bad decisions. Uncle Pog is aware.
Yes, that was funny.
It's really good. Oh my gosh. Speaking of things that make Gwen an absolute badass, first of all, I like her linguist abilities. That's cool.
The freaking morphing sword?
The morphing sword, man.
Oh, that's so badass.
It was so badass. Oh. And it like looked like she's like controlling it with her mind or something.
Yeah,
like it's
man.
a liquid sword. It's like a reimagined lightsaber in a way, but like, I think cooler. It like resides on her arms like it's a tattoo. Mm-hmm. Oh, so good. That's so imaginative and cool.
I loved it.
Me too. I liked when he asks Gwen to join them. There's a look in her eyes like maybe like there's a hope in her eyes like she could. But then she says it's too late, and then that's when everyone, all the watchers descend on them, showing that she has a desire to join them anyway. And so when it'll make it even more believable when this starts to turn. I think.
Yeah,
I like that.
I'm down.
On a rewatch, I really love the moment when I liked it on the first watch too, but when Rock Talk saves Dahl's life, and Dahl says, "You saved my life," but then he still like scurries away from Rock Talk as if he's scared. of Rock-Talk, and like there's a look on Rock-Talk's face. She kind of shakes her head and goes like she's frustrated with the fact that no one can understand her and that no one understands that she's like a good meaning person. And I thought that was just really well done, and just like underline the loneliness of this planet, you know, that like these characters have been on this planet just like busting rocks and not having anyone to communicate with. It's just so freaking tragic.
It is. It really is. They did a really good job of making me care about these people.
Yeah, same.
And like I said before on the show, I'm excited to see the Prakar finally realized on the screen.
What is the Prakar?
That is Rock-Talk species.
Oh, okay. Where were they mentioned previously?
They came from the novels.
Oh, fun.
Like, they originated from Worf's First Adventure.
Worf's First Adventure. Wait, is that the Academy books?
I think so, yeah.
I read that book as a kid. That's funny.
Yeah. So, like, the Peter David created them.
Yeah.
And there's a Prakar character in New Frontier books. Like, I just think it's interesting to start bringing in characters specifically from the extended universe. Like, I feel like Kurtzman looked at it and said, look, man, this is a thing that, like, Star Wars didn't do good. Where, like, they started making new movies and ignoring their extended universe.
Yeah.
And even Star Wars has kind of gone back and said, okay, let's do some Thrawn.
Oh, it's funny you mentioned that, because I just had Matthew Fox on the MCU cast last week. Fox was talking all about how, like, it's just it's cool that they're finally going back and grabbing all that Legends material for Star Wars and making it really a part of the Prime universe.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of Marvel does that, where they like pull from the source material, but they change it a little bit when needed, but they still are always pulling from the source material. And it's nice to hear you talk about Star Trek that way too, because I think it's definitely doing that same thing. I think that there's a real balance there of telling new stories while pulling from materials that are beloved, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's cool. I liked Jason Mantzoukas' character's percussive maintenance. It's his specialty.
Yeah.
It's just a great line. Percussive maintenance. Just a wonderful line.
It is a good line.
And I also really liked I Thought I Was Captain. When they asked the whole, what is your role here? He's like, I thought I was captain. That is the most Malcolm Reynolds thing, that he said, I think. Even though Malcolm Reynolds is the captain on Firefly, like, that is just a very, like, I thought I was in charge. Mm-hmm. Presumptive, I'm in charge nature. I love it. Always the hero of your own story. It's good stuff.
Yeah, I thought that was a fun line.
All right, well, anything else in this episode you want to touch on? Talk about?
I don't know. I think I've hit everything that I could think of.
Yeah, we went way longer than I planned, but I just loved this episode so much.
Yeah, and that we are in cat boots.
Mm-hmm. There you go. That's something we didn't talk about. Cat boots. Super silly, super funny. I like it. Great. Well, guys, thank you guys for joining us. We're the Star Trek Universe, the podcast.
You could say Star Trek Universe podcast. I don't.
Oh man. Well, we'll be back soon. I guess a couple days with another episode of Prodigy.
I mean, I'm going out of town. I don't have anything to record on, so it'll be a minute.
Okay. Gotcha. Well, we'll talk. I might try to hop on and do a second episode if you're not going to be here before the third episode, if that makes sense.
Well, I mean, I'll be around. I'm just going to be gone for 4 days. I think I'll be back by the time we usually get around to it, is what I'm saying.
Oh, I gotcha. Yeah, great. I didn't know how long you were going to be gone. Gotcha. Cool.
Yeah.
Well, we'll be back soon then, guys. Peace. Jolan True.
Live long and prosper.
I membered.
You membered. Good membering, buddy.
Thank you for listening to the Star Trek Universe Podcast, a Stranded Panda production. If you'd like to hear more from David C. Robertson, check out the DC On Screen podcast or maladjusted.tv for his web videos. If you'd like to hear more from Matthew Carroll, check out the Marvel Cinematic Universe podcast or listen to his music. Just search for Matthew Carroll anywhere you get music.